Breaking news. Hell breaks loose in Kaliningrad. Erdoğan sends fighter jets into battle. Turkish troops are on standby. The unbelievable has happened. There was an outburst in the Kremlin when they heard about this. NATO has urgently made a statement. Their patience has run out. This will bring Moscow to its knees. More details ahead. Watch until the end. Hello, this is Ukraine Today, Renata Aslanova, and here are the latest events. It happened. Erdogan sent a spy plane to the borders of the Kaliningrad region. Turkey has deployed one of its 4 AWACS reconnaissance planes to Lithuania. The mission, which lasted 4 days, aimed to strengthen NATO's defense in the Baltic region. Turkey made this decision after repeated violations of alliance countries' airspace by Russian drones. In Vilnius, they hope that the aerial spy will help detect low-flying drones and other objects invisible to ground-based radar systems. They stated that AWACS is truly an impressive tool, and it's no coincidence that it's called NATO's eyes in the sky. And it seems that Turkish leaders are indeed determined. In addition to sending aircraft, Erdogan stated that NATO should adopt Ankara's model in countering Russian planes and drones that violate the airspace of its allies. He emphasized that Turkey acts decisively and without delay in such situations, and this approach could be effective for the entire alliance. At the same time, the Turkish leader reminded that his country has clear rules for the use of force. The military has been ordered to shoot down any aircraft violating the airspace without waiting for further instructions. A vivid example was the incident in November 2015 when Turkish F-16 fighters shot down a Russian Su-24 bomber that crossed into Turkey during an operation in Syria. At that time, one of the pilots died during ejection. US President Donald Trump holds the same opinion. He said that NATO should shoot down Russian planes that violate its airspace. And NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte has already supported the American leader. He emphasized that he fully agrees with Trump and that planes really should be shot down if necessary. The Secretary-General said that the alliance's military forces have several decades of experience responding to violations by Russia.
This means that combat pilots and military personnel are constantly assessing threats and, when necessary, at the very least escorting these planes out of alliance territory. But if necessary, we will also do more and take extreme measures to protect our population.
The Russian armed forces have already managed to respond to such decisive statements from NATO. For example, the Russian ambassador to France threatened war if NATO shoots down their plane. And of course, he began to deny Moscow's involvement with the drone incidents in Europe. But what's interesting is that the French president himself isn't particularly enthusiastic about the idea of shooting down Russian planes either. Macron stated that alliance countries should first and foremost strengthen their response in the event of new provocations. At the same time, French leaders do not believe that NATO should shoot down Russian aircraft. He is convinced that in response to these tests by the Russian military in Europe, there should be no return fire. All these statements were made against the backdrop of the UN General Assembly session and the gathering of world leaders in the US. Donald Trump also received his Turkish counterpart at the White House. After the start of the meeting, the US president noted his friendly relations with Erdogan. He added that Erdogan has built a huge army and that Turkey buys a significant amount of American weapons. They
want to acquire F-16S, F-35S, and some other weapons, and we will discuss this with them. I think we will have a very interesting few hours with them.
Trump also stated that he would like Ankara to stop buying Russian oil. Trump reiterated that the Russian economy is experiencing difficulties because of the war in Ukraine. The US president emphasized that Erdogan can influence the course of the war in Ukraine, since, according to him, both Zelensky and Putin respect the Turkish leader.
Putin must stop, and both Putin and Zelensky respect Erdogan. Everyone respects Erdogan. I really respect Erdogan. He can have a major influence on the war in Ukraine if he wants to, but he prefers to remain neutral.
Erdogan openly stood up to Putin. Russian planes over NATO countries will be shot down without mercy. Ukraine is gaining a powerful ally. How will this turn the war around? All the details are in the report.
Erdogan has called on NATO to build relations with Russia following Turkey's example. To put it in plain language, Erdogan is urging NATO to shoot down Russian drones and aircraft over NATO countries. Turkey itself did exactly that, back in 2015. After the annexation of Crimea, Russia began violating Turkish airspace. Erdogan immediately gave the order to shoot down the enemy bomber. By the way, after that, Putin never touched Turkey again and became almost paranoid about Recep Tayyip.
He's a strong, tough leader who is guided first and foremost, and perhaps exclusively, by the interests of Turkey and the Turkish people. We have a lot of overlapping vectors of mutual interests, and President Erdogan never lets anyone walk all over him.
But then why, already in 2025, when Russian drones are flying over NATO countries and fighter jets are violating Estonian airspace, is there no such reaction?
For Erdogan, shooting down a Russian plane was a kind of show of strength and a demonstration of an authoritarian leader's willingness to defend not only the sovereignty of his own state, but also to extend his influence to neighboring countries. At the same time, Estonia primarily relies on other countries to take care of its security first and foremost.
It turns out that even 10 years ago, the Kremlin decided to test the patience of NATO countries, but received a tough response. And just like that, after this, Putin pretended that he had nothing to do with it.
This was muscle flexing on Putin's part, as part of his rivalry with Erdogan for influence in the Middle East, where Turkey had a direct impact on the course of important geopolitical processes.
Turkey challenged the Kremlin to defend Lithuania after Russia violated its airspace. The Turkish president sent an airborne radar surveillance and control aircraft there. This is
more a demonstration of solidarity specifically with the North Atlantic allies. Both President Erdogan himself and the nation of Turkey, as a prominent and influential NATO member, are essentially and clearly demonstrating their unwavering willingness to actively advance their own national interests and significantly enhance their own strategic status and standing in this crucial and highly contested geopolitical area as well.
At the UN General Assembly, Erdogan promised to continue making efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Ukraine.
Through direct and ongoing negotiations, we have already successfully facilitated prisoner and body exchanges, and we are actively helping to determine the crucial viability of peaceful negotiations between the involved parties.
And at the Crimean Platform Summit, Turkey declared its moral and historical duty, namely to protect the rights of the Crimean Tatars.
Turkey has never recognized the illegal annexation of Crimea, and we have firmly maintained this position since 2014, supporting the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, including Crimea.
Wait, but what will happen to Gazprom now? It seems that Erdogan is distancing himself from Putin and getting closer to Trump. It has become known that Turkey has signed a 20-year gas agreement with the United States.
Turkey's policy is based on multi-vector approaches, but first and foremost with an emphasis on its own interests, which is why we see very close cooperation between Ankara and on certain issues with Moscow. At the same time, Turkey is a member of NATO and has very close military cooperation with the United States of America and is constantly trying to acquire various types of weaponry produced by the US.
Also continuing its cooperation with the US, Turkey plans to purchase hundreds of American aircraft. This step may be an indication that Ankara is working to restore strained relations with Washington, which arose due to the purchase of the Russian air defense system.
In the future, we will also see this multi-vector approach from Ankara towards China, towards Moscow, and towards Europe and America. His main goal is, first and foremost, to strengthen his own position.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
At that time, Russia once again slipped into the CPM. After Poland, the Kremlin sent its UAVs directly towards Scandinavia. NATO is at its limit. The alliance is already preparing a lightning-fast response. Who is next in the crosshairs, and how does NATO plan to stop the invasion? Watch right now.
Unknown drones attacked Denmark and Norway on the evening of Monday, September 22nd. As a result, an alert was declared. At Denmark's largest airport in Copenhagen, all arrivals and departures were halted after drones were spotted in the airspace. More than 35 flights were redirected to other airports.
We are observing a growing and concerning trend of increasingly frequent and provocative acts of intrusion into the sovereign airspace of the member states of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, commonly known as the North Atlantic Alliance. And this concerning development is unfolding not only in those nations and sovereign states that are geographically proximate and in close proximity to the Russian Federation, but now with increasing frequency and broader implications, it also extends to and significantly impacts countries that are considerably more distant and geographically removed from Russia's borders.
Not one of the 4 drones that flew over the airport was shot down. The police in Copenhagen stated that the UAVs disappeared. Denmark and Norway will conduct a joint investigation into both cases of mysterious raids.
The recent drone incursion that we have witnessed in these past few days wasn't the very first instance of such an event. There have already been multiple violations of sovereign Polish airspace by various missiles and numerous Shahids. It's just that there hasn't been such a truly massive and widespread attack in actual fact until now. I firmly believe that this incident was unequivocally an attack, a profoundly serious act of aggression specifically intended to thoroughly test the effectiveness and resolve of the targeted entity. Furthermore, I am of the opinion that Russia possesses the capability and potential to undertake similar actions, employing comparable tactics and strategies in various other sovereign countries across the globe as well.
In the Norwegian capital Oslo, an alert was also declared due to drones near the military zone of Akershus fortress. The drones were detected by the military, and in connection with the incident, 2 people from Singapore were detained.
It would be very important, of course, for American institutions to act more decisively and with greater determination. But unfortunately, so far, apart from some general statements and preliminary declarations, we do not clearly see how truly ready the United States is to effectively deal with the significant challenges that currently exist right now in the global arena.
Drones on European territory are now more of a common occurrence than news. Previously, all unidentified drones turned out to be of Russian origin, and it is quite possible that, due to their impunity, Russia continues to test NATO's patience. The opinion that the countries of the North Atlantic Alliance could have responded more decisively by shooting down the Grekor UAV over Estonia was expressed by Lithuanian Defense Minister Davitesha Kalniene. She also recalled the example of Turkey, whose airspace was also violated by Russia 10 years ago.
It seems to me that there is indeed a very noticeable and significant lack of political will here, a clear absence of the necessary determination to act decisively. At this particular stage, perhaps the nation of Estonia is genuinely afraid that the Russian Federation might somehow retaliate or respond in a negative manner, but it is highly probable that Russia will respond in a different, most likely asymmetric and unpredictable way. Russia could, for instance, significantly step up its various subversive activities and clandestine operations within Estonia. And considering the undeniable fact that Estonia shares a direct border with the Russian Federation and that a substantial number of ethnic Russians currently reside within Estonia, this complex situation could very easily become a profoundly destabilizing factor, creating considerable unrest and uncertainty within the region.
Planes that violate the airspace of NATO countries should be shot down. This was stated by Czech President Petr Pavel. According to him, only such an adequate response will make Russia realize that it has crossed the line and made a mistake.
And what do you think about the latest events? Share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and stay up to date with the main news. There's more to come.